Today on Great Places Seen, it's another hop between stops moving east across the United States, with plenty of unique creatures and beings to see along the way. We take slower local transportation as geology shows us some watery surprises, open expanses, and steep drops into tiny recesses as interest rises in things that fell. Go ahead, dive in before the desert sunlight fades. Every location is unique, and as I move across the vast U.S. West, while I'm anxious to see what's next down the road, I find an overnight stay is only giving me a flash of what is there, and I need to come back and explore more. But what if this is the only time I'm ever here? Well, there is what's next down the road. After all, the West is huge. I'll take a little more time at my next stop. Hello again from the road. We're in New Mexico and heading for a special place. Roswell, home of the UFOs. Before all that, there's the matter of getting there. Just to return to I-10 is a half-hour ride through the open, desolate ranges. Well, I had a very nice morning at Rockhound State Park in New Mexico near Deming. You can check out that video. That's the one before this one. Staying in New Mexico today and heading to Roswell. Should be interesting. I'm going to stay at Bottomless Lakes State Park. I think the lakes probably do have a bottom. Not sure. My route today is along Interstate 10. These long, boring straightaways. Although I find them kind of interesting. They're full of scrub brush, mountains in the distance, trains along the side. There's something to keep you interested as you roll along. Maybe even a Class A coming by. But at Las Cruces, I'm going to take Arizona 70 north. And that will go to Roswell. 70 kind of meanders around a bit. Let's see what we get. You can ride your bicycle along the highway in New Mexico. Might not be the best idea, but you can do it. Las Cruces, which translates to the Crosses, is the second most populous city in New Mexico. Over 111,000 people call it home. The metro area is twice as large. Las Cruces is also the home of New Mexico State University, New Mexico's only land-grant university. It does have a variety of roadside animals, too. The city's major employer? Yep, the federal government, at nearby White Sands Test Facility and White Sands Missile Range. It's close to the border with Mexico, about 41 miles north, and the same distance from El Paso, Texas. Several successful crewed suborbital flights have lifted off just 55 miles to the north. Spaceport America and Virgin Galactic are based in Las Cruces. Here's where all the fun begins. White Sands, missile testing, UFOs. It's out here. For a long highway straightaway, it has to be one of the more intriguing ones in the country. Don't you love when there are road signs telling you where the top secret facilities are? Not so secret, it seems, when they're right there in plain sight. There is the small task of getting close to them. That's a whole other realm. This stretch of Arizona 70, I think, is the best road I have driven the entire trip. Absolutely pure, smooth, wonderful. If they all could only be like this. What a great road. After all, it is our tax dollars at work supporting a spread-out complex of missile testing infrastructure and a popular national park just ahead. A lot of traffic does cross here, even though it may not seem busy at any one point in time. I'm sitting back enjoying the views and an easy ride, for now. passing by White Sands National Park. Not on my list for today. Perhaps another time. Well, we get an inspection station. Let's see what they would like to inspect. He asked if it was just me and if I'm a U.S. citizen. Yes, all the way. My easy straight ride is clearly coming to an end at the Sacramento Mountains dead ahead. It's Alamogordo, a place that has been inhabited for at least 11,000 years. We know it in our era for its connection to the world's first atomic explosion in 1945, about 60 miles northwest. Seems the town survived. Did fallout produce a mutant pistachio? It is the world's largest, they say. Not edible, is my guess. Heading into the mountains. High into the mountains. Not only are large pine trees suddenly in view, but briefly, there's even snow at the top. Ooh, great view of the 12,000-foot-high Sierra Blanca, a complex ancient volcano. Now it's hot because there are ski resorts and golf courses there. This area is quite a treat after weeks in the desert. Despite the steep climb, the grade is mostly tolerable, the car isn't struggling, and the outside temps are cool enough to keep engine heat in check. Across a relatively short distance, changes in elevation are revealing a variety of landscapes that seem out of place after seeing so much flat desert terrain in between rugged, rocky mountains and hills. That's making today's drive perhaps the most varied I've had for a single day on this long out-and-back cross-country trek. I'm slowly making my way down to the high desert plains of eastern New Mexico. Well, just past the sign for 6,000 feet elevation. Continuing to descend. About 38 miles outside of Roswell now. You could see why aliens would like to land here. Very nice country. The roads are great. Yeah, why not land here? They may have picked a nice area, but the aliens certainly lost points from the judges for failing to stick their landing. Allegedly. Better luck next time. Do you think that's why they haven't tried since? Or have they? I'm content to continue flying low as I tow. No crashes on this journey, thank you. Go. A roadside table. I just want to get my sandwich out of the back. I don't need the table. Somewhere in the heartland of New Mexico. You do get a little history here, though. You suppose that is way off in the distance? Did an alien craft crash? That's in the direction of Roswell. Must be Roswell. An unexplained disappearance. Where did that big column of thick smoke go? It's gone. Roswell definitely continues to capitalize on its unique place in Western lore. We'll get into the details later of what allegedly happened here. At least the drive through town toward camp is certainly colorful and entertaining. I think the only alien in Roswell was me, without estate plates. I think I've beaten the sun and will be able to get to my site before it goes down. I just know it. This last 20 minutes of driving in glorious golden hour light is setting up for another spectacular western sunset. That's one of the lakes. Home for the next 2 nights. Good morning from Bottomless Lakes State Park, near Roswell, New Mexico. I'm still keeping my time on Eastern, which means I'm up very early as I'm out west. And so I get to see sunrises that I normally don't see. I'm not usually an early riser, but here I am. And wow, the mornings here are just as spectacular as the sunsets. These sunrises are almost like sunsets in reverse. Except for the fact that the morning air is cold, and for some reason, it just makes it appear different. When I arrived, the sign said the campground was full, but I see a lot of empty sites. I guess there were no shows? Not sure. The desert plain waiting for the light. It's not too far above now. One of the nice aspects about this trailer is it has windows on all 4 sides, but the front and the back are huge. Fortunately, our cameras have time-lapse, so we can watch this event in a little more reasonable time rather than sit through a whole hour of waiting for the sun to rise. Now the light's beginning to reach the campground. I'll be the last to get direct sunlight since I'm against this hill. This is a great campground, especially for families, and there are a lot of children here. Early in the morning, they haven't quite woken up yet. My thermometer says it's a little chilly outside. Well, I'm kind of used to it by now. And later, well, we're supposed to have temperatures around 80 degrees. That's a 45-degree swing. An ice warning? I don't think so. The chill in the air and all this white sand almost makes it look like snow. I can guarantee it's not snow. Most people at the park haven't emerged from their trailers yet. After all, it's the weekend. Just having a nice, relaxing time at the lake. I do have a bit of an agenda. I want to see the park. I want to get a little work done. I do have to make some reservations for the next couple of stops. And I just want to tidy up the trailer a little bit. Perhaps even go into Roswell. All that sounds like a pretty full day. At least at sunrise, I can get the bicycle out and start exploring. First, I'll explore the facilities near my site. Nice enough, and with outlets near the sinks. Good for hair dryers and shavers. Some places actually don't have them. Before I get the bike out, I think I'm going to scramble up this hill and take a look. Oh, would appear a few people left super early. I know it was much fuller than this when I pulled in. No drones allowed here, but at least I have this hill. The campground is next to Lea Lake. This is one of the largest of the lakes in the park. It appears part of the facilities are being rehabbed. The park also contains quite a bit of wetlands. You can hear some of the very interesting morning sounds from this area as its residents begin to awake. It's a little bit of an oasis out here. What you can't see from the campground is Lea Lake is huge. It bends around this rock here. Certainly you can see it from the shore over there, but not from the campsites. That's a steep drop-off. You can see where the ground is just fallen apart and toppled down into this massive sinkhole. That's what this is. Years ago, water came through here and carved out some of the minerals underneath, producing these big caverns. Well, that was all well and good, but the weight of the ceilings of the caverns wasn't supported. And so, the ceilings eventually collapsed, and these huge sinkholes developed, water filled them, and now they're lakes. Just as long as nothing decides to cave in while I'm standing here. Very serene in the early morning light. Of course, soon, the children will be up and out, and this is going to be quite a lively place. There's a whole series of lakes back in this direction, but you can't see them from here. So, let's go back down, get the bicycle, and head out while it's still relatively calm. From here you get a good view of the layout of this campground. It's all flat. Most of these are back-in sites. Where mine is, number 22, I'm up against this little cliff wall, which is kind of nice. It has a little bit of privacy behind it. You do have a row up here of lakefront sites, but there's a good distance between those and the lake. And of course, a large day use area. When it's really warm in the summer, this place is busy. Although this week, temperatures are going to be in the mid-80s. That may bring some people out. I'm always amazed at plants that decide to cling to the most unlikely places. The vast plains around Roswell, New Mexico. And actually, I think these are two of the towns below Roswell. Midway and the other one. Begins with a D. My apologies. I'll look it up. You don't think of sinkholes as being particularly pretty, but this one's nice. There is an overlook from the road coming in. This area seems to be where most of the morning sounds were coming from, but now I'm hearing birds and animals all around. Look, another tab is visiting, and a little guy Max. You know, Little Guy and Nucamp were once part of the same company. I guess that explains why they appear similar. The only activity so far is the early morning park rounds. It is super quiet in the campground this morning. All of these sites extremely flat. I didn't have to level. I just parked and hooked up. This is an electric and water campground. And of course they have a dump station. I can't believe I'm still carrying water from Joshua Tree. I keep checking and I'm amazed how much water I have. I didn't think I was conserving that well. Alright, let me see if I can get down here without hurting myself. Look at the needles on that cactus. Those are some long ones. Still winter. Many of these plants are dormant. It'll be a while before they spring back to life again. Lots of grass in this area too. Doesn't that look like frost or light snow? It's kind of funny. Actually, we're not that far from White Sands. I passed it on the way here. But while the rest of my trip will not be below freezing, I certainly will have to winterize before I put the trailer away, because at home, it's going to be below freezing for many days until mid-April, according to the long-range forecast. So, before I finally put it back in storage, the trailer will have to be winterized again. One more week of life. Yeah, I think this is the way I came up. You can see what makes up the white color, these mineral deposits. I think I can turn that one off now. Well, since this is always here, maybe I can call this permafrost. This is very loose. Look, you can almost take it right apart with your hands. You can. This is what was primarily underneath the ground in the sinkholes. And this is why water was able to carve out caverns so easily. And over time, all of this is still coming apart. That's what makes the descent a little bit tricky. The ground underneath is not stable. Wheels rolling in a new state, New Mexico. This is Lea Lake, L-E-A. This is the one next to the campground. Right now I'm in the day use area, which is large. This area probably gets more day use than it does campers, although the campground seems to be full quite often. It says no fishing. I don't know what fish live in here unless it's been stocked. The land clearly still eroding, still changing over time. These lakes are between 17 feet deep and 90, depending on how large the cavern underneath was before the roof collapsed. I have not seen any evidence of fish swimming or coming up for air or any of that. The water is completely still. There must be something interesting in the water. These birds keep diving for food. I'm not sure what they're eating. From Lea Lake, The park extends out a few miles. Let's go check out some of the other lake areas. There's a whole string of them. There's also a whole string of extra video to watch at Great Places Scene 2, campground tours, trails to hike, bike, and drive, and more beyond the main episodes. You can always find links in the description. The great thing about having a bicycle is you can go so many places fairly quickly and cover a lot of ground and see a lot of things. By the way, apologies for no helmet. I forgot my helmet again. I'll be real careful. But having a bicycle, especially on this trip, has been a real plus. The road that leads to the campground is New Mexico 409. You essentially head south from Roswell, and then it loops around the campground and heads north again. But this little part where it heads north leads to the other lakes of the park. And at this hour in the morning, there's no traffic out here. In fact, I didn't really see any traffic yesterday either. I do have a couple of bike helmets at home. I'm putting it on my list right now to pull one and leave it in the trailer. Here in New Mexico and several of the other states, they don't have a helmet law for motorcycles. I'm sorry, I think that's a little crazy. I ride a motorcycle. I sure as heck wouldn't ride without a helmet. And not down the highway like I've seen many. When I've seen how many bugs hit the car, I don't want to ride without a helmet just for that. You can clearly see areas in this hillside that have collapsed. And of course over there I can see a little bit of infrastructure, like a bathroom. A clear sign that these other little lakes are right here. Here is the first entrance into this area of lakes. Well, the map tells me this is Pasture Lake. And as I rode up, a giant heron flew off. I don't know what it is about herons on this trip. I have scared so many herons away from water areas. Sorry about that. Perhaps he will return. But until then, let's take a look at Pasture Lake. Obviously one of the smaller in the chain. And as with Lea Lake, the water's fairly clear. This looks a little bit murkier. I'm not sure what's in the water. A lot of minerals, obviously. Of course, at this hour of the day, very still, very quiet, very serene place. Clearly, you can see while nothing is falling down, erosion is continuing to take place. Some of these rocks will come down. As I say that, there was a little bit of dirt that fell off this edge here. I didn't touch it, honest. The reflections are perfect. When the landscape greens a little bit, this definitely will be Pasture Lake. It's warming up nicely and very quickly. This is part of Figure 8 Lake. I haven't seen anything that tells me how deep each lake is. But interesting, where I'm standing used to be part of the ceiling of a cave. And that ceiling is now down here. Obviously not a bottomless lake, because the water would all drain out. It's very clear water. I'd say it's about 2 feet deep here before it drops off. And if it weren't for the reflection of the water, you could see way out. You don't see quite as defined a pit in the other lakes, at least I haven't so far, because I haven't seen them all, like this one. This one's very well defined. It's like a crater. And apparently these folks understand it's really good to get a view from up top. Because look at all this brush down here. A little better vantage point here. There's a little pool there and a larger pool over here. And they are connected. Hence the name Figure 8. This part is almost perfectly round. A little more open in this spot. The breeze is reaching the water, so the reflections are not quite as clear as Pasture Lake. But still very nice. Here's the smaller portion of Figure 8. The water level is either low or these are no longer connected, but right through there is a little wash area leading to the larger side. Well, the water here is very calm, at least when people aren't at the top throwing rocks into it. Here's a simulated recreation. It does appear the water level changes. Perhaps when you get into a rainier season, this fills up more. You can clearly see the edges where the water rises to different levels. This larger part of Figure 8 looks like it has a pretty good drop-off. Again, no idea how deep this one is. Between 17 and 90 feet. This one's probably somewhere in the middle. And lots of people now taking to the trails, climbing the rocks and seeing the views from above. Not too bad from right down here either. There are a couple more lakes to check out. I think they're all going to be fairly similar to this, but let's take a look. I was delayed about a half hour because the rear wheel was flat. I ran into this a few stops back, and I thought I had a spare too, but I didn't, because this tire is larger than the previous bikes that I had. 29 inches. So I put a little fix-a-flat in there. Not exactly kosher, but it worked until today when I pulled the wheel out and it was flat again. So I put the pannier bag on the back, and I have the air pump with me just in case it runs flat when I'm way out and away from the trailer. I don't want to have to walk this bike back a few miles. I will have to get a new tube, obviously, when I get home. But this will last me at least the rest of the trip. It almost appears as if you're looking across the Serengeti. Quite a view. If the welcome sign is to the back and upside down, what are they saying up front? Fire restrictions. You're not so welcome here. This little round depression is the Devil's Inkwell. No swimming, no diving. Diving off there looks like it would hurt. Let's check it out. Devil's Inkwell. Ooh, that a neat one? The water in this, very green. This is a very compact lake. No shore in it. It's just a pit with water. That is nothing but a sheer drop off. I guess the devil's ink is green. You see green writing, beware. Ooh, a nice echo too. Let's try it out. A nice echo. A devilish pit indeed.
Morning.
This is Mirror Lake. Truck pulled up to Devil's Inkwell, and there were some folks going fishing. I asked them what kind of fish are they finding in here, and they said they've stocked them with rainbow trout. So now you know, rainbow trout are in here. Look at this. We'd almost call this one the figure 8 lake. Water is down, they're not quite connected here. But the map says this one is Mirror Lake. A little more open. The breeze is getting to the water. So not quite the crystal clear mirror image we saw earlier. This part goes back farther than you can see up top. Being round and enclosed, sound carries very well here. You can hear the others very clearly, even when they're far away. I did not see signs at the other lakes. That doesn't mean they weren't there, but this one has a prominent sign. It says Mirror Lake is 50 feet deep. It sits at an elevation of 3,483 feet, and says it's an excellent example of the near coalescence of two sinks caused by the collapse of adjacent underground cavities. An even more unusual aspect of this lake, it says, is that the water to the right can support game fish, while the water to the left has a saline content too high for the fish to survive. So, if you're coming here, fish in the small one. Have some growth here on the bottom. And the smaller part is slightly higher, so it is feeding the larger lake. This little area, not a lake, it's a little slot canyon. It's not marked on the map, but you have another picnic area by it. And a cool little trail that presumably winds way back in there. Obviously a large wash coming out of here. This tiny lake revealing itself right next to the visitor center is Cottonwood Lake. Here's another one, like Devil's Inkwell. It is a pit, small, but look at the canyon walls there. And oh, I still can't see down there. There it is. Yeah, it's the same basic story for each of these lakes, but each has a definite personality to it. So it's fun to see all of them. They're all different, even though they were made the exact same way. So there you have Cottonwood Lake, presumably, because it has cottonwood trees there. You would call this a tiny but mighty lake. As you can see from above, below it has apparently an equally as steep drop. How deep? I don't know. It's a good 15 to 20 feet down to the water from where I'm standing. This is one I dare say not too many people actually get to the water. Probably the only way would be to come up this little crease here, but that's really steep. Perhaps you could get down this way. But why, when you have so many other lakes? Again, a very still and quiet place when no one is here. The different rock layers very clear. And again, this was filled with minerals that were easily soluble by water. It created a cave. Perhaps this was even with the roof of the cave at one time. But there was nothing to support the roof. And so it fell in. Here's part of it right here. And after it fell in, the water was either exposed or it filled up and became a lake. What's nice about this lake is there's a visitor center. Let's see if they have more information on the lakes. This rock almost looks like a natural marker. I thought I might get some more info, but apparently it's closed. Even though we've got 2 parked vehicles here. Look at all the little thorns I'm picking up. Hey, it's a good thing I have thick tires, but one of those may cause me some trouble. Find out in the next episode of Great Places Seen GPS. Others may already be watching.